guys, and welcome to another video, and today we are not covering Harmon Smith for once. No, today we're covering someone else, and before you ask, no, it isn't Quantum TV. It isn't Acerthorn either. It isn't even DSP. No, today we are covering someone who used to be someone we could all look up to and respect in the gaming industry, Jim Sterling. I certainly remember a time when I looked up to Jim and respected him, but as the years went on, he became more and more political, and then, in the year of our Lord, 2020 AD, when all hell broke loose in the real world, what with COVID-19 and the SJWs coming out in full force, Jim finally went and did a 180 and showed his true SJW colors, and guess what? It cost him around about 250,000 subscribers at least. Much like the DEI bullshit we're seeing getting forced into video games, comic books, and movies these days, Jim Sterling decided to focus on politics and the like, and became every single thing he hated, proving the two phrases we don't hear too much anymore these days. The first: you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. The second phrase is, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And no, I'm not just talking about Jim's weight, I mean his subscriber count too. He still has almost 750,000 subscribers, and I'm honestly shocked that he still has any at all, to be honest. But anyway, Jim made a video where he, in true SJW fashion, bitched up a storm about Black Myth Wukong's success because that game has just broken the SJW minds. I do believe that I have never before seen so much salt over one game's success before. Anyways, the reason that I chose to make this video is because of the title. And as much as I try to avoid Jim Sterling's slop nowadays, I've always wanted to give him a good verbal bitch slap for betraying those of us who don't like having political bullshit forced down our throats at every twist, turn, and opportunity. And so, what better time to give Jim that verbal bitch slap than now, right? Anyways, I've rambled on for long enough, so let's let Jim begin his argument, shall we?
Forced diversity. Now, that's a term I've heard a lot in the past 10 years, and especially in the past few weeks. Now, when the anti-woke set trot that out, not only is it an incredibly stupid criticism, it's also one of the most cowardly that they could use. You see, I have witnessed that term being applied to literally any form of diversity, from the most pronounced center stage representation to a little side character who happens to be part of a marginalized demographic, or pronouns in a drop-down list, or a little tiny pride flag waving in a massive open-world Spider-Man game.
The problem is, Jim, is that all that shit you just mentioned gets shoehorned into literally everything nowadays. Dude, gay characters have been a part of storytelling for literal years at this point, at least. The same exact thing goes for women and black people and other types of minorities. As for the pronouns, fuck off. Literally less than 5% of the population cares about the pronoun bullshit too. And look, if you're gonna say that you're non-binary and that you don't go by the standard pronouns, that's fine. I'll respect your decision. Just don't expect me or anyone else to call you by your preferred pronouns, okay? If you look and sound like a man, then as far as I'm concerned, you are a man and I will refer to you as he, his, him. And if you look and sound like a woman, then I will refer to you as she, her. Besides, referring to anyone as anything other than those two sets of pronouns is grammatically incorrect anyway, and may God Almighty have mercy on your soul if I catch you trying to brainwash kids with this stuff. You got me? As for the pride flags, let me alter a few details and ask you what you would have to say if I forced a game dev to put in a shitload of Christian crosses and other Christian imagery into a video game. What would you have to say about that? Would you say that that's forced diversity? You also said that forced diversity is a stupid criticism. Well, let's examine that, shall we? All these games that are doing forced diversity are dying, precisely because of that forced diversity. Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Concord, Dustborn, the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake probably, and all of these other companies who are putting forced diversity into these games are dying. Also, how can it be diversity if it's forced, Jim? You'll also notice that not once did Jim provide any examples of these things that he's claiming that he's seen over the past few weeks. Sounds to me like you're making shit up. That's what that sounds like to me, Jim. How many video games must flop, and how many more game companies must fold before something clicks in the SJWs' tiny little brains and they connect the dots and realize that we don't want wokeness in video games? Now, having said all of that, if the characters in question aren't forcing their lifestyle or whatever it is down your throat, or their homosexuality or whatever, then yeah, I actually do side with Jim and say that that one is stupid, but I've not heard anyone say that recently, so...
And the question I have is this. If any amount of diversity is too much diversity, why do you need the word forced in there? Why do you need that qualification? Is it because anyone who's reasonable would find you incredibly intolerant if you simply said you didn't like a minor bit of diversity in a game? And all I have to say to that is I think I respect people that just use slurs against me more than people who use the term forced diversity, because at least there's an honesty to that, you know?
People are using slurs against you now. Oh, please, I gotta hear this. Oh, wait, just like you did in the last clip, you're probably not gonna provide any examples, are you? Well, you all know my motto by now, folks. A claim that is made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. As for the forced diversity bit, well, considering that Game Science, the developer behind Myth Wukong, was approached by a DEI consultancy company, and they basically said, pay us $7 million to fix, air quotes, your game, or we'll make your life a living hell. You can see the problem there, right? Now, I have no problem with diversity. In fact, I actually welcome it, but when you force in the kind of diversity that these consultancy companies, like Sweet Baby Inc. does, then yeah, I really don't want that kind of diversity. Sorry about that. For example, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, an Assassin's Creed game that takes place in Japan, you would think that you would play as a Japanese samurai, right? Well, according to Ubisoft and Sweet Baby Inc., we gotta go with Thomas Lockley's bullshit story of Yasuke, a black samurai, despite there being no historical records of him or his sexuality. He's a black man. A gay black man. And no, I don't have anything against gay people, black people, or gay black people. What I have a problem with is when they put a character like that in a video game he doesn't belong in. If I played, for example, a GTA game with a gay black character, then yeah, I can understand that. Because at least in GTA or Saints Row or any games like that, in those games, a gay black man actually makes sense, and I would welcome it there, especially in the earlier Saints Row games, namely 3 and 4. But I've gone off on a tangent. But to answer your question about the forced diversity bit, it's because, as I understand it, if video games nowadays don't include it, they get targeted by people like Jim, or they aren't allowed to release it here, or some other such. I don't quite remember, but it was something to do with like BlackRock, and the head honcho there even stated loud and proud that they have to force people's attitudes to change. It's frustrating how we can't have anything nice anymore because of SJWs like you, Jim. That's what all of this boils down to in the grand scheme of things. You just can't let us have nice things. You want diversity, that's fine, I do too, but when you want the level of diversity like what you want, then make your own damn games and leave ours the hell alone.
Not saying I'm the bravest girl in the world, but when it comes to that lot, no matter how much I fem up, I'm always going to have bigger balls than them.
Is that a fact, Jack? Then here's something else that you've got that's bigger, and that's an ego and a gut, so shut the fuck up. Also, mighty funny how you still didn't name any examples of slurs that you were called. Just like I knew would be the case.
I'll say this for the pronoun police who make their purchasing decisions based solely on whether something is woke or not. They've actually stumbled onto a win recently. Now, while it's true that they gleefully bought a distinctly mediocre and already forgotten Hogwanks game just to stick it to the transes, and they pledged to buy an actual asset flip in Stray Souls as soon as they found out the director was a fascist twat, I gotta admit, after years of hypocritically political consumerism, the pretend apoliticals actually have a good game to rally around.
Actually, Jim, we have several more games to rally around than just Hogwanks Legacy. We have Myth Wukong, which you're about to bring up, so we'll let you talk about that one after I don't know how many minutes into the video. Sorry about that one, folks. But we also have Cyberpunk 2077. We have Pal World. We have all those good games from years prior, and they also don't have the fucking pronoun horse shit. Again, fuck off with the pronoun nonsense. 5 years ago, literally no more than 5 years ago, no one was using the pronoun stuff, and now less than 5% of the population is doing it. So what's your point here exactly? Also, are you still fucking salty over Hogwanks Legacy, Jim? Let it go, man. You're as bad as Harmon Smith about holding grudges, dude. Jesus Christ. Oh, but remember, folks, according to this lard ass who hasn't been to the gym in a month of Sundays, Hogwanks Legacy is dangerous.
By all accounts, Myth Wukong is rock-solid stuff. They can finally put down hatred and the other sub-mundane software they narrowed their gaming down to, after swearing off anything with a tiny hint of progressiveness. Yes, it's been decided, because of some reasons, that Myth Wukong is antithetical to everything them no-good SJWs stand for. Now, are they going to be normal about having a good game to play? Or no, they're not going to be normal and just enjoy having a good game to play, are they? Well,
I said it earlier in the video, Jim. Game Science, the developer behind Myth Wukong, gave Sweet Baby Inc., a well-known SJW company that had its CEO, Kim Belair, say, in plain English, in front of God and everybody, that if the company doesn't give you what you want, then you need to terrify the bejesus out of them until you get what you want. The middle finger. 2 of them, in fact. And just like that, the SJWs came out the woodworks and began bitching up a storm and making shit up about Game Science being misogynists. And instead of talking about the game, like game journalists are supposed to, what do? Try to talk about the so-called controversies. It got so bad that eventually Game Science had to set some ground rules for the people who want to cover Myth Wukong. The do section included, enjoy the game, and that was literally it. The don't section said, don't bring up feminist bullshit or conspiracy theories or whatever other SJW bullshit you've got. Don't talk about China's political policy or COVID-19 or any other bullshit that isn't about our game. Talk about the game and the game only. To be honest, Game Science wasn't asking for that much, just that they try to keep political bullshit out of their video games. They are an example that everyone should follow because every single time, without fail, when a game goes woke, the game dev behind it goes broke. Which is why the saying goes, get woke, go broke. Yet you have the gall to ask the question of, will they just be normal now? And then proceed to answer your own question with, no, they won't. Like you know us from friggin' Adam and Eve. You don't, so knock it off. Also, who are you to be calling anyone else a real gamer or a fake one?
Well, I say they have a good game to play. Are they actually playing it, though?
Well, I mean, according to Steam, they are. Almost a whopping total player peak of 2.5 million, just about. Cope harder, Jim.
Or have they simply hijacked all discussion about it to such an overshadowing degree that if I were the developer, I'd feel both insulted and disappointed that any discussion about its merits as a game has become all but buried? Let's just call that the Stellar Blade Effect.
What the hell is he talking about? That the game's discussion is varied? Sorry, but could you elaborate on that one, Jim? Anyway, you aren't the developer of the game, thank God. Because we'd see all sorts of wokeness in the game if you were, and since you're not the developer of the game and you aren't exactly what I would call a reviewer anymore, then maybe you should leave YouTube, as you have long since abandoned what your channel was all about, which is why you continue to bleed subscribers each week. Or at least you were, I don't know, I don't keep up with it anymore.
For a long time now, I've categorized the regressive chudsticks who whine about so-called wokeness in video games as the gamers, TM with a capital G. It's a popular term used online to differentiate normal people who play games, aka gamers, from the terminally online strangelings who are so mentally frail they literally cannot handle seeing the word they followed by a slash and a them.
Let me stop you right there, Mr. Sterling. First of all, as I said, not more than 5 years ago, literally no one was using they, them, or whatever fucking pronouns they use, and yet now it's become the trendy thing on the internet. And I want to know how many of the weirdos who actually think they can just choose their gender or their pronouns know how that nonsense got started. It was because of some nut job named John Money who came up with the theory that gender was a social construct, and he learned that two boys who were born with the same penile deformity had a botched circumcision. One of them did, anyway. And so he saw a chance to put his theory to the test, and he found the parents and asked them to give the boy with the botched circumcision a sex change to female. As the twins were growing up, the girl was given dolls and doll houses while the boy got trucks and power tool toys. But the girl didn't want to play with the toys that her parents got her, she wanted to play with her brother's toys. In addition to all that, she had therapy sessions with John Money, who would show her pictures of vaginas and have her make sexual poses with her brother to get her to be more ladylike. These sessions traumatized the young girl, and she became suicidal and told her parents about it, who then came out and told her the whole truth about the whole deal, that she was actually born as a boy, and after learning this, the girl immediately got a sex change back to male and took pills to revert to the male body. As you can see, John Money's theory was a steaming pile of bullshit, and yet he and others still claim that it was a success when it was anything but. It wouldn't be until years later when John Money was exposed as a fraud. But even then, people are still claiming that his experiment was a success when reality proves that it was an utter failure, as have numerous science experiments done over the years after the whole gender is a social construct nonsense became trendy. Oh, and yet, according to twats like Jim, anti-woke people like me are the regressive ones. Tell me, folks, do you see why literally nobody takes Jim Sterling seriously anymore?
Lately, however, I've come to realize that separating these columns into gamers and capital G gamers might be giving the latter entirely too much credit. They are, after all, spending entire days on the internet whining about seeing a black woman in a game one time. I never hear about them, playing the video games they claim to be protecting from SJWs, wokeness, and their latest attempt at repackaging the one subject they incessantly bang on about, DEI. That stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, by the way. A fairly basic concept that hinged people traditionally find quite reasonable. Anyway, after seeing how these diversity-fearing imbeciles have acted in the wake of Black Myth Wukong's release, I'm convinced that if they game at all, it's not to enjoy what they're playing. All entertainment is viewed through the lens of a culture war that's become their entire identity. They don't play games for themselves, they play games at other people. And again, that's if they play at all.
What in the actual fuck does any of that drivel you just spewed out even mean, Jen? Seriously, I had to watch it back at least twice now, and I still don't understand what he was saying. Well, I will say, I have never heard anyone complain about a black woman in video games. Like, as in ever. Seriously, Jim, show me exactly where you heard that or shut the fuck up. No one, and I do literally mean no one in the gaming industry gives a shit about you or your political beliefs. You were, at one point, the most respected figure in the gaming industry, or at least one of the most respected people in the gaming industry. Yet now, you have become the joke of the video game industry, and you don't even have a punchline. If Jim actually did any sort of research, he would see that Black Myth Wukong had, at one point, over 2.4 million peak players at one time. That sounds like people are actually playing the game to me. If anyone is being given too much credit here, Jim, it's SJWs like you. Again, most people, like 99% of people, don't have any sort of problem with diversity, but have you not seen all the game companies that are being forced to close because they work with DEI consultancy companies? You want DEI in video games? That's fine. Get your ass out there and make your own damn games and stop ruining the good ones, okay?
Alleged fans of Black Myth Wukong have spent most of the past week harassing and lying about an IGN writer for daring to report on the developer's, let's say, spicy attitudes towards women a few months ago.
Oh, here we go! He's talking about the IGN hit piece article where a woman claims that she was molested or something by game science employees, yet that article was debunked and disproven, and what the game science spokesman said was mistranslated. As you can see, Jim Sterling clearly doesn't know how to do research anymore. Cope harder, fat ass.
From accusing her of lying in her original report, to literally making up things she said, to acting like she made her social media private to hide from them when she's always been private. Though what would it say about the angry mob if that were true? These people have been slobbering all over their own unearned self-righteousness.
Jim, there have been numerous articles and videos proving that Rebeka Valentine lied. All because game science turned Sweet Baby Inc. away and told them that they didn't want their help, air quotes. Also, I'm pretty sure her tweets were only made private after she started getting called out over her bullshit article, but this is one of the many reasons that I don't like SJWs. They have a very serious mentality of rules for thee but not for me, and Jim here just proved it.
Ironic that they called a legit reporting of facts a hit piece when the grossly irresponsible character assassination going on is aimed at the author. They are not gamers. They're not even capital G gamers TM. They're nothing more than the attack dogs of right-wing grifters who've manipulated them into believing such stupid garbage as Dragon Age Veilguard erasing straight people. I did see one very apt word for them. They're not gamers. They're tourists. They are outraged tourists. Oh, and don't worry, we'll get to the mass diaper filling that's occurred over Dragon Age. Oh. I've got my own term for these online roaming pack hunters. And no, it's not just I like to call them fandom appropriators. I've not seen any of them share their actual opinions on Black Myth's gameplay. I've not seen them talk about their enjoyment of it. I've seen them only tout the game's success as a win for their side of a dumbass war and form up to attack anybody they perceive as the enemy.
It was your side that started this little war, Jim. Don't bullshit me, mate. Game science made it perfectly clear to talk about the game, not any sort of bullshit politics, but that's because they were harassed by SJWs like you who say, "Put in the game what we want you to put in the game, or we'll make your lives a living hell." And that's what they're trying to do, and because they are getting harassed, ironically enough, by SJWs who love to fucking harass other people for not bowing down to their political beliefs. I'm sorry to repeat myself, folks, but Jim here keeps repeating himself, so after this, we're gonna skip along a bit because I don't like repeating myself. Also, Jim, considering how SJWs work, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Rebeka lied. I have, after all, seen a fairly serious rise in false allegations from women towards men lately. And what about the women who work at Game Science, Jim? I guess we're just going to pretend that they don't exist. If misogyny were rampant at Game Science, then why haven't those women quit and reported it to the authorities? Let me guess. Your response will be something along the lines of, well, they're suffering from internalized misogyny. Dude, if that's your argument, then you need to leave it well enough alone. And considering how often the word misogyny gets tossed around nowadays, I think it's safe to say that that word has lost all meaning, just like any other buzzword does when it gets tossed around enough. But seriously, that IGN article was debunked and disproven numerous times, and since when has IGN ever been a reputable source of information anyway? What about those tweets that Game Science made that were mistranslated and intentionally misinterpreted? Lastly, who the flying fuck are you, Jim, to be telling who is and is not a real gamer and a fake one? You aren't the voice of reason in video games that you used to be, and guess what? You're only going to continue to fall as long as you continue down this path.
That's all I keep fucking hearing about this game. I have heard about this game all bloody week, and I couldn't tell you what anyone I've seen talking about it actually bloody thinks of the thing. Is it good? Someone just tell me, is Black Myth Wukong good? Because I've got it downloaded, but I figured I wouldn't like it because it's mostly boss fights. Is that true? I don't even know what's true anymore. I think I read that once, before any talk about the actual game got fucking crushed under an avalanche of shit.
Fucking finally, we've gotten to the point where Jim talks about Black Myth Wukong. Like, I mean the actual game, not any bullshit IGN articles. Anyways, to answer your question, Jim, yes, at least the first area is a bit of a boss rush, but they're fairly easy in my experience. But I've only played the game for about 52 minutes. It has de novo anti-tamper, which I think makes the game lag like a bitch, at least on my Steam Deck. But the game is good, yes, from what little I played. Excuse me, sorry about that. It's like baby's first Soulsborne game. Excuse me again.
You know what I'll be doing after I post this video? Probably playing Black Myth Wukong, because it's more interesting than what some of you are doing right now, which is calling me a man in the comments of an increasingly irrelevant YouTube channel, because that's the kind of low-stakes, low-hanging nonsense you care about.
These guys are creepy, and yes, just
why didn't you actually play Black Myth Wukong before making this video, you fucking idiot? Also, Jim, and I love to be the one to tell you this, but you are actually a man. You were born with a Y chromosome and are therefore a man, as any scientist worth his salt will tell you. You have a male skeletal frame and a male's muscle mass, so you are, in fact, a man. And the same goes for anyone else who was born with a Y chromosome. Even if you identify as non-binary, science still dictates that you are, in fact, a man. If you were born with an X chromosome instead, then even if you identify as a non-binary, you are still a woman. You have a woman's skeletal structure as well as a woman's muscle mass. But anyways, let's get to some of the comments that Jim dug up later in the video, because he repeats himself an awful lot in the section immediately following this.
weird as hell.
Actually, I might skip Wukong and replay the demo of Gory Cuddly Carnage. Have you seen that shit? I tried the demo with very tempered expectations and came away fucking stunned. It's the most early 2000s shit I've played since the literal early 2000s, and I've become obsessed with it. It's like a Maso Tony Hawk Fur Fighters met Metal Arm's glitch in the system by way of a psychedelic fucking nightmare. I think I'm in love.
My eyes, the goggles do nothing.
I guarantee you it's the best game about a cat using his sentient skateboard to dismember killer unicorns you'll play this year.
Funny how Jim said he was gonna play Wukong, but then says that he'll skip it probably and play the cat with a skateboard thing now. So why aren't you playing it now, Jim? Instead of uploading videos to your, as you said, increasingly irrelevant YouTube channel. Then again, I just contradicted myself by saying that I was going to skip this part and go to the comments Jim dug up, but now Jim knows how those of us who want the DEI bullshit to get out of gaming and never ever come back feel, eh?
Anyway, the response from the online hunting packs to Dragon Age Veilguard's queer representation is not only goddamn hilarious, but incredibly telling as well. Before we get to what a self-report their outrage is, let's sample some of it, shall we? Twitter, formerly ex-user Arkstan has been sharing a load of commentary from the game's Steam forums. Content warning ahead for extreme amounts of even more extreme stupidity. This is a no buy from me. This feels like Star Wars acolytes or the Marvels. Absolutely shoehorned agenda and propaganda. Gameplay and old Dragon Age fans are not their target audience. So I am out. Yeah, remember what this pod said about target audiences. It'll be important for later. Extremely woke game director! I hope this game doesn't DEI LGBTQ itself to death. Finn. I like this one because the writer included the T and the Q. Say what you will about the stupidity of the sentiment, at least they're not a turf. We're the white men at. I think I saw one in the entire trailer. Well, now you know how non-white men have felt watching game trailers for most of the medium's entire existence, don't you?
Let's see, games that don't have white men or white men aren't the main characters. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars, Grand Theft Auto 5. The entirety of the Musou games from Tecmo Koei, the Saints Row games, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Bandit Kings of Ancient China, Genghis Khan. I know that list may seem small, but considering that some of those games are from franchises that are at least 4 decades old, well, at least 3 decades old, sorry. That means that non-white men have been in games for the medium's entire existence, Jim. Get out of your bubble and go out into the real world, okay, big guy? As for the other two, go back to my Christian imagery comparison and tell me that you wouldn't be singing a different tune. Oh, better yet, I'll do you one even better and ask you, what about putting in Islamic imagery or Islamic stuff in general? Would you want that in there too? I mean, it would be diversity if you did.
They made Morrigan ugly. Why? Why are they doing this? Yo, BioWare devs, why can't we just have one super attractive female companion in the game? Why did you have to make Morrigan ugly? And you covered her up more? Are you guys religious Puritans or something? You say there's full nudity, but why would anyone want to see ugly women companions naked?
Thick earth. You sad, pathetic winker.
So I wasn't planning to go on any derailing tangents for individual comments, but oh boy, there's a lot to unpack with this lamentation. A lamentation that calls Morrigan ugly for basically looking the same but a little bit older and wearing different clothes and a different hairstyle. So it's always fascinating to me how these guys equate sexiness entirely with nudity. Like, hey, I get it. I watch way too much porn as well, but I'm not so poisoned by it that I need to see someone naked to find them attractive. This is one of the most common controversies you see from these people, shrieking in unstimulated rage because a woman is wearing more clothes than she used to and is thus puritanical. That is a self-report in and of itself. If you cannot distinguish beauty from nudity, that is absolutely a you problem. Like the comment admits though, Veilguard will have nudity in it. Of course it will, it's a BioWare game, it's gonna have awkward sex scenes. So exactly how much skin do you need to see at all times before you're satisfied it wasn't made by Puritans? How much do you need? It's like I always say, corporations don't just want some nudity, they want all of the wait, no, that's the wrong catchphrase. Remember how the fandom appropriators screamed puritanical censorship over Street Fighter 6's Cammy wearing pants and a jacket? Like, many of the real Street Fighter fans would agree that her updated look is actually actually hotter than the, let's face it, unflatteringly dull green leotard. Well, it's hotter aside from the flag-shagging back of the jacket, of course, but to any member of the Reform Party, that's only more reason to pop a huge core boner. Also, it's fucking hilarious that Street Fighter 6 still had Cammy's leotard as an alternate costume, because it was never about making her less hot, it was about giving her a different kind of hot outfit to choose. By the way, if you think the leotard's sexier, more power to you. I'm a leg gal. I understand. Another thing of note, most of us lefty queeros actually don't mind sexy women with a predilection for the skimpy. Have you not seen the big queer following Bayonetta and Nier Automata have? We want... Let me just get this right. Dat ass. However, my taste isn't so utterly narrow that I need to see a cheeky hint of side boob to find someone hot. It'd be nice now and again, but it's not necessary. These whiny kids today clearly aren't old enough to remember how April O'Neil was a Saturday morning sex symbol. That jumpsuit. So many pockets. So much utility.
I keep telling you, you're not my type!
Don't even get me started on Gadget Hack Wrench. Actually, no, seriously, don't. I've said way too much already.
I'm sorry, I let that clip run on for a lot longer than I otherwise would have liked to, but I had to so that Jim could get the full context out, so that I could utterly dismantle it, and by dismantle it, what I really mean is, I'm going to ask Jim, have you not seen what they did to the woman who was the mocap actor for the female lead in Star Wars Outlaws, Jim? The woman who mocapped for her is a very beautiful woman, and yet, Ubisoft made the character she's mocapping for absolutely hideous. Like, literally. The main character in Star Wars Outlaws, she looks like a man who had the misfortune to be born with feminine features, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, like to any men who were born with feminine features. I'm not trying to offend you, I'm just trying to make a point here. Also, no one that I know of, online or in real life, equates beauty to nudity. But you have got to be some sort of delusional if you haven't noticed that uglification of women in video games lately. And this is happening because they don't want to offend transgenders, yet they're only doing it to women. Not to men, but only to women, as I understand it. Yet, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Comically woke trailer. Guys, this is 2024. The woke as possible isn't just a meme. It feels dated. This isn't 2008 where it was funny to invent inept sexuality because a black was elected, and it was racist to say anything but praises. We're almost 20 years later. Ghostbusters 2016 was dead on arrival when the trailer came out. Almost 10 years after this, and you still finance this DEI farce? Because a black was elected. Because a black... Is this game woke? Woke mean no buy. All woke game equals bad, so is it woke? Someone pulls update DEI detect on this. That's not the first time I've seen someone post in the Steam forums for a game asking if it's woke. It is seriously the first thing some people want to know about a game, which is just...
Weird as hell.
Usually I want to know if a game's good. Like gory, cuddly carnage. Oh, and yes, DEI detected is an actual thing. Because like I said, these fuckos claim to be completely apolitical, but their gaming decisions are based obsessively on their politics. Let's see what the fine folks at DEI detected have detected lately. Oh, they're angry at Concord. Because it has pronouns in small text at the top right-hand corner of the screen. That's a normal thing to be upset about that I'm sure one day they'll be able to explain in a way that doesn't make them sound like massively bigoted tosspots who are mad at LGBTQ plus people for simply existing in public. Oh, and they don't want to fuck any of the women. Of course. Too many clothes, I guess.
And I think that's enough Jim Sterling for one day, because at this point, the fat cunt isn't even talking about Black Myth Wukong anymore. He's instead fighting in a war, air quotes, that he himself stated was irrelevant. Fuck me, man, Jim Sterling has gotten worse since I last saw him. Anyways, sorry for all the politics in this one, folks. I try to keep politics off of both of my YouTube channels, this one and especially my gaming one, Pergasus. I'm sure I'm going to lose a shitload of subscribers, but damn did the title of Jim's video piss me off. He sits there saying, well, you're not a real gamer if you have a problem with pronouns. And yet, he's here acting like he's the authority on video games when he's talking about an IGN article that was debunked and disproven numerous times, certainly more times than I care to count. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.